What are you taking from it is really what I'm asking. That might be helpful to you when Laura arranges for you to get online with some of your peers. In other words, what's come out of this little bit of work we've done that you may find helpful and are thinking about in terms of your work when you lead these groups?
It was a really great example of how to weave together being attentive to both the presenting needs of the individual and the group at once. It was good for me to see.
I used the term mediation, and I borrowed that from Bill Schwartz, who was never a teacher of mine, but he was a colleague and a very important mentor. He actually, in social work, invented the mutual aid model, because that wasn't there back in 1960s when he did that. And one of the things he talked about was the task of searching out the common ground between the individual and the group. Am I making sense on that? So instinctively, as she starts to speak, Jacqueline, I'm thinking about the common ground between what she's raising and what the rest of the group is feeling. And I'm reaching for it, trying to help the group see their connections to each other. And that's where the real help comes from. I'm glad that came across. How about others? What hit you?
I think it's also important, just gaining confidence with like being assertive in like when you're in a conversation in a room, you can kind of pick up on nonverbal cues of when to start talking. Whereas we're all kind of on a screen, there's a little bit of a lag. So it's like just that confidence in who's going to start talking and getting kind of comfortable with that silence of not the silence that would be there if you were in a room, but the kind of like who's going to unmute their thing to speak next. So I think that's
Would it be great? Wouldn't it be great then if Alex, as part of his introduction, threw that in there? That would be addressing the fact that there's a different modality here. Wouldn't it be terrific if part of the introduction he says, you know, I know it's not that easy when you're in a room and you can see everyone, it's a lot easier. And here you're not sure when to jump in, you don't want to interrupt. So we'll have to struggle with that a little bit to figure out how to make that work. Say it. You're right on target, Alex. You understand what I'm saying? Most of what you think and feel and experience is right on target. The problem is we don't always say it. So I put that into my opening statement, you know, recognizing that this is a different modality and we'll have to work to make it work for us. Excellent. What else are you thinking?
What I actually like about this kind of group is that I'm an expert as like the leader. I'm actually an expert in what's going on in my life, and everyone else is experiencing it as well. So I don't have to do research to try to figure out how I can connect to people. Like, this is real. This is what's happening to everyone right now. And so even speaking about some of the things that's going on in my life right now is it kind of helps decrease the stress. So I really like that. It goes both ways as well.
One of the most powerful healing processes in mutual aid, in my view, is the all in the same boat phenomenon. And just sitting there and hearing fellow students struggling with similar issues and similar concerns, that in itself is the start of a healing process, in my view, or can be, not necessarily, but it can be. So hearing everybody sharing common issues, common concerns, common struggles, that's very helpful. If you got that out of a first session and even said to your group, you know, this is a great start. We've really identified things that everybody's sharing. We're supposed to meet again next week. I don't know how that's going to work for her, but supposed to meet another. Why don't we try to take one of these issues at a time each week and see if we can be helpful to each other on how we struggle with these issues? That would be a good first session in my view. I don't think you have to solve all the problems. I think just, you know, making a connection between people, you know, and finding they can talk to other people about these issues and they can give help. And as they give help, they're getting help. That's the most powerful idea of mutual aid. It isn't the individual versus the group. As the group provides help to the individual, they're actually helping themselves at exactly the same time. Your job, help that happen. Help that connection come on. What else are you taking out of this? We're into kind of a wrap up now. We're into, I think, I know we have a lot of time, but I think we'll be better to use the time right now to do a little wrap up and an evaluation of this session. From my sense, I don't know about the rest of you, but that's my sense right now. So what else are you taking out of this? So far, the 3 or 4 things you've mentioned are very important and very powerful, to me anyway. What else? Some folks haven't had a chance to speak up, maybe because your mic's not working or you're more hesitant, but this is your chance if you want to get something in. This is your opportunity.
Okay, I know I'm more of a silent partner here, but I think one thing that I think is helpful for everybody, I would assume, is the way that you've modeled, you know, sort of how things go. So people have a really good sense the way you related to this group is the way that they can relate to their groups.
Margie, I'm not just pulling for compliments. Can you specifically identify anything that I did that you thought was helpful? And then I'll ask
Yeah, I
you.
think even what you're doing right this minute. I mean, the way that you've reflected, you know, people's experiences, their questions, you've summarized, you know, just a lot of the skills that you're using are skills that they'll be using. And just the content of, you know, the way that you laid out, you know, tuning in, you did that, you showed us that. The way that you talked about contracting, you showed us that, we practiced it. So I just think that everything that, that everybody's going to be doing themselves is something that they would have experienced here today.
Oh, that's nice. I'm glad that came across that way, Margie. And again, I hope everybody did hear my emphasis on individual artistry. I think that's the thing that I fear most our losing in the profession of social work if we become too mechanical. So individual artistry, each of you in your own way will find a way to accomplish the same thing. Your words may be different, your emotions may be different, but the strategy will be similar. Absolutely. You know what I didn't hear though, now that I'm thinking about it, none of you raised the issue. Maybe we can just take a couple of minutes on this and then do some more reflection. None of you raised the issue that you might raise with the group members about the fact that you're a peer. That didn't come up. I'm curious about that.
I think that will actually be easier. Like in this situation, there's like faculty, staff, and like students. But for us, I think that that will be kind of an advantage just because that's our cohort. Those are our people, even though we may not know them. Like some of us know each other from the program, which is nice. But I think it does take some pressure off. Like running groups, like in the past, we may have done it as like employees or like a different expectation. But this, it's just, they're just like us. So I think that will be easier in a sense.
That would be the positive side. Any on the negative side? Anything you ought to be concerned about? Anybody in the group not like the idea that you're the leader? Or that, you know, a peer is taking that role. I happen to agree with you, right, Alex, that that would be one of the real advantages, you know, of peers, working with peers. Anybody have anything else that might be an issue?
I think as far as the peers go, an issue could be just somebody else kind of getting distracted on, well, I would do this if I was running this group as like a group member, because we all are in the same boat, in the same class, kind of like what Alex said, like we're all cohorts. So I could see that potentially being an issue maybe.
How would you deal with it? What do you think, Eden? Because you might be on target.
I honestly don't know. Just because I think I might be that person, like if someone were to run a group. Only because like I go to individual counseling and like I see myself kind of like, oh yeah, like I didn't think about that, or I probably would have worded that a little differently. So I'm not really sure how to kind of overcome that obstacle.
Okay, let me comment on that. And you know, now that I'm listening to you and hearing what you're saying, when you develop your peer groups, right, they're going to have a structure, and they will have certain qualities that are qualities of the group as a whole. One of them is norms. They'll have norms of behavior, things that we tend to think we can share or not share with each other. And so we want to try to create the norms in the group where people feel free to share even difficult topics, like dependency, like feeling overwhelmed. Those are things that are not easy to share. So there's norms. There's also individual roles that people play. in the little thing we did today, I asked Jacqueline, and she did a wonderful job of playing the role of a member of the group who's feeling so overwhelmed that all she can do is talk. But that was important because that's a little bit like what everyone else feels. You just feel it more, Jacqueline. And that's why you took the invitation. There are, and I am responding to you, Eden. There are also internal leaders of the group. Understand? You're the external leader. You were given authority by Laura to set a group up like this and to be the person to try to lead the group effectively. But there'll be people emerging within the group who can also offer leadership, who have had experiences and ideas. Welcome them. They're not your competition, they're your allies. Am I making sense? And so if I've got an Eden in the group who's bringing certain kinds of experiences to the group, I don't take it as her trying to take over my leadership of the group. I think I'm being very successful if I can get someone like Eden to do that, to start to share some of her own experiences or differences or agreements. So if I heard you correctly, Eden, you could be an internal leader in that group. And I welcome you, you know, just like I have deviant members, just like I have scapegoats, just like I have different kind of roles in groups. Internal leaders that you feel are challenging you may be your allies, not your enemy. So if I heard you right, Eden, I would not be distressed by somebody who appears to be emerging to try to take leadership in the group. I'd encourage it.
Okay, thank you.
As long as that leadership is contributing to the group. I wouldn't feel threatened by it. I'd feel I'm being successful if they're internal leaders. And if I get the person who says, well, you know, I did this, but I wasn't sure it was going to be helpful. And I'm not sure this was as helpful as it could have been. Now, what are you going to say to that, folks? You're leading the group. It's a key moment in the group. That's your deviant member. Everybody else is going like this, and that's the person who's going like this.
What would be helpful to you?
Huh?
What would be helpful to you?
That would be important. What else? How about, you know, Adriel, that was not easy to risk. So I want to credit you for giving that feedback. Perhaps you're not alone. Maybe some of the rest of the group members don't feel it's always helpful. If so, let's talk about what would make it more helpful. I'm not separating you from the group. You understand? I think you play a functional role in the group. And the deviant member is often someone raising things that other people think and feel, ambivalence about the group, whatever, I don't know what. So they're my allies as well. Our big mistake in group work is that we think somebody who acts like that or is negative is our enemy. They're not our enemy. They may be articulating something that other people feel more or less. And so rather than cutting you off, I want to reach for, good for you, Adrian. You were honest, about your experiences. How about others? If others experience it that way as well, what is it we could do to make this more effective? You understand what I've just done? I've turned my deviant member into an internal leader, saying things that other people may feel, but don't feel free to say. I mean, that's easy to say, after I've had 40 years of experience in the field. At the beginning, when I got people like that, I didn't like them. And I would say things like, well, if you don't think the group is helpful, why don't you go find another group? That's New York coming out, by the way, not my Canadian. So yeah, if somebody was negative, they could be your ally, not necessarily your enemy in that group. Just don't treat them as your enemy. See them as expressing something more or less. And why do they take that role? I don't know. Usually people who are the deviant members of my group, my counseling groups, for example, they're usually the ones that feel things. Well, for example, and then we'll wrap up. I see the time. I lead a group and I videotape this group. Some of these are available, by the way. If you get on YouTube, put my name in. Some of these group sessions are available. They were put out on there by the university. And the very first session, he's denying. It's a group for people who are in recovery from substance abuse. And he's denying that he has any problems in this group. He's joking, he's laughing, he's kidding, all that stuff. And at the very beginning, it's not my group, by the way, it's a group of someone I was supervising, who was a student of mine. And she gets very defensive, and the more defensive she gets, the more he acts out. Skillful intervention is quite different, where she early says to him, this is actually the third session, she says, John, I think you're feeling everything everyone else is feeling here. but I think it's even more difficult for you than it is for them. These were all people, by the way, who were mandated clients because they had had a substance abuse issue and they had a choice, go to jail or come to the group. How's that for a mandated client, right? And in the third session, there's a very long silence and he starts to cry. And he discloses for the first time that he had been driving under the influence, got into a crash, and his wife was killed. Do we now know why, right from the first session, he was the most resistant and difficult one? Do we now understand why it was so hard for him to face what he was facing? All of the men had guilt about their drinking and what it had done to their lives. He was the one who felt it most strongly. Am I making sense? And the deviant member, whether it's a mild deviant, somebody who says, well, I don't know if these groups are worthwhile, is usually the person who feels what other people feel, but they feel it most strongly. Anyone else? Last comments. So let me wish you luck in your groups. I hope this is going to help you to use your groups as a learning opportunity for you. I believe it's like field work for you. Is that right, Laura? Yeah, so this is your field work, leading these groups.
Yes.
I think it's wonderful that you volunteered. I think your peers need some help right now. And I'm hopeful that this workshop and our discussion gave you some clear ideas about how to proceed when you have your first sessions. And again, you will make mistakes. Hopefully you can learn from mistakes. Your group members will help you if you ask them to. You can correct those mistakes and then you can go on and make more sophisticated mistakes. And I wish you lots of good, sound, sophisticated mistakes.